Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Today's episode is all about how to get your coaching qualification funded. And the reason that we are covering this is about half of our learners are funded by their organization, but we also have people approach us that really want to do our courses and they're like, oh, I'm not sure how I'm going to fund it yet. And they just have never really thought about even that their employer could maybe fund them. So we thought we would give some hints and tips as to how to go about having that conversation or gearing up to have that conversation so that you can explore that opportunity with your employer.
Yeah, and I think the first place to start is the most obvious one, which is to ask. And I think it's really often overlooked that you could be in a position to ask for support and ask for help. We know from teaching what we teach, asking for help can be a real challenge for people that's connected to a Be Strong driver, which you learn all about on the program once you get it funded and come to join us. But yeah, so ask if it's something that is in your learning zone, something that you feel you could benefit from, something that you feel you could bring, into the work environment that they would get a benefit from, then why would you not go and ask for support and sponsorship for embarking on something that's going to have mutual benefit? Yes, benefit for you, but also benefit for your organization.
And I think that's the piece. So it might be when you're having your annual review and there may be a section in the kind of the paperwork or the forms that you fill out beforehand around what support do you need in the year ahead? Like, what are your goals and what support do you need? And that may be an example of somewhere where you could put that in. It might be have regular one-to-ones with your manager, and they're always asking you, how can we support you? What are you passionate about? How do you want to grow and develop over the next couple of years? What roles are you looking at, in the future? So thinking about whether coaching is relevant to that and how it might be relevant, and sharing that is really important. And as I was saying, you need to be able to relate the value of undertaking a coaching qualification to the organization. So, for example, how might it save them money? And that might be because you might then look to take on responsibility to develop a coaching culture in the organization. It may be that you'll host a coaching cafe once a month where people can drop in and they can have, short coaching sessions with you. It might be that you're able to run introduction to coaching workshops once you've got your coaching qualification. So rather than paying an external person lots of money to come in and do that, you might be able to do that yourself. Whilst you're undertaking your coaching qualification, you'll need to undertake a certain number of coaching hours. And it may be that you offer to do that with people or a cohort of people internally, all things that have a real monetary value if the organization were to bring in an external coach.
I think there's also things to think about related to that, which are intangible. And on a coaching qualification, you get to understand your values, your beliefs. You remove many mindset blocks. So if you're somebody who recognizes that perhaps you aren't as emotionally resilient as you'd like to be, or there are times where you feel less confident in your role than you'd like to be, or you perhaps aren't as invested in growing your network as you would like to. As much as a coaching qualification is going to teach you how to coach, you're also going to gain that personal effectiveness through, experiencing shifts in your mindset through the program. So it is an opportunity to do all those things that Jo, you've said there. And it's an opportunity for you to be able to invest in just your mindset, the way that you work, the way that you see the world, so that you become more productive in your own role and in the way that you do things. So if you have a role which is about reaching out into the organization, building relationships, the way that you do that post a coaching qualification is going to be enhanced, accelerated. So, think about the way that you need to work in your role and what you might get from doing the coaching qualification that's going to help you to be even more productive in your role. So that can really help you to build a business case as well.
Sometimes I think there's a well-being angle to it as well. You may be in a role, I don't know, let's say you're in a project manager role. So you're kind of looking after, people delivering on the project. Maybe there aren't very many other people managers in your organization. Maybe you're a HR manager or HR director, and you feel that you can't really be fully yourself in the role because of, what the role requires of you. Maybe you work from home, it's a virtual role, and you don't feel that connected to people in your organization, and you're seeking community. And the coaching qualification with its regular meetings gives you that sense of security, safety, connectedness to other people. And so, that's the value for you, that it can sustain you in your role. If your manager knows that these are real challenges for you, and then you identify this as being a solution, that can be a valid thing to put forwards.
So I guess what we're saying there is that number 2 is build a business case. So we've given you like lots of juice that you could put into that business case. But if number 1 is ask, number 2 is build a business case, put that together and think about the value that you can bring both through activities and in the way that you work and in your own role.
Now, my coaching qualification was funded by 2 organizations, because I left one partway through. So I had the experience of building a business case and getting the support from my organization that I was working with. And I was really grateful for that. And I made it very clear that I was really grateful for it. And I worked really hard to demonstrate and provide value in return for it. But it also was a point in time where a new position became available that I wanted to go for, and I was successful in getting that. Part of the negotiations for me accepting that role was that they would continue to fund my coaching qualification. And so when an organization wants you, they identify you as talent. At that point, you as the individual are in a position of power or relative power. And that's a great way to start, I think, in a role. Is like, again, I transitioned into that role with gratitude. I was excited about the role that I was going to be taking on, and all of that role. And I was really grateful that they were telling me how much they valued me by saying, we understand this is important to you, we're going to support you to do it, and we can see the value that will bring to the organization. And for me, that was yes, our values are aligned, mine and the organization. And so again, it's the idea of mutual benefit. That's the principle that we need to work on. It may be, if you're in your current role, perhaps you could negotiate part organization funding and part self-funding, where you're both demonstrating like a commitment to it. We have a number of learners that have been in that situation. It's easy for us to set up. We've even had the situation where somebody has self-funded, and then I think it was even a client organization, so it wasn't the employer, said, we want to pay for that for you. So we refunded the individual the fee they self-funded after obviously we'd invoiced and received payment from the other organization. So I suppose just to say there that it may be that your organization won't fund it up front, but once they see the value, they then might say, do you know what, that's provided so much value, and we want to reimburse you for that investment that you made, that we now have felt the benefit of it. So, that's quite an exciting thought, and maybe something you haven't thought about.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things to summarize. Let's negotiate. So don't take a no as a carte blanche, like, okay, it goes no further. Think about how you can negotiate this 50-50 split, or what you'll give and what you'll get in return. And, if self-funding is, still a big step for you, then think about how you can demonstrate that value beyond, starting. I think what comes up for me is this piece around start those conversations early. So don't wait until you're at the point where you're like desperate to do the coaching qualification. And if you're finding that, look at the self-funding options, because that could be something that is a great fit for you. But if you're kind of noodling this interest in coaching, have a conversation now around, I'd be really interested in doing a coaching course at some point in the future. What would I need to do in order for that to fit into my role and be something that you could sponsor and fund me for? Build it into your performance review, into your development plan, and then meet the expectations and the objectives that you've agreed and set for that to have happen. So, engage in it from a spirit of, I'm going to make this worth your while. I'm going to demonstrate to you how valuable this is going to be to both of us, and start on that path today, as opposed to, just leaving it to chance, or leaving it to a possibility.
It might also be that conversation, over time, seed is planted, starts to grow. It may be that your manager suddenly thinks, oh, actually, that might be something I want to do. Maybe you end up doing it together. And that's another thing that you can negotiate. If you thought that you could work together, you really wanted to create a difference in the team or in the organization or in the region or the part of, where you are. So, how there may be another way to bring your manager in and along for the experience. And again, maybe they would feel like, oh, I don't really want to do it on my own because it's quite a big thing to do, but I'd love to share that experience with somebody else. So get creative in in the way that you look at it, rather than, as I was saying earlier, rather than thinking about, oh, I'm going to ask them and then they'll probably say no, and you're discounting. So what we're saying is, move away from the discounting. I've had many conversations with learners joining our programs who say, I'm going to self-fund. I don't think I can afford to do it this year, but it's something I want to work up to next year, or that's fine. And then I say, oh, have you asked your organization if they would fund it? And they say, oh, no, do you think they would? I don't know. But, it may be worth having a conversation. If that's something that you would, is that something you would like or ideally like, then yes, of course. But a lot of people just don't think to ask. And actually organizations like to. I mean, Zoe and I have worked in HR. It might also be that it's your manager might say, oh, I can't make the decision on that. It needs to go to, the next line manager up would need to sign off on that. So then you can say to him, what would I need to demonstrate in order to do that? Or could I have a conversation with them? It might be that they say, oh, you'll need to speak to HR about that because they look after the budget for this bit. Again, ask your manager to coach you, mentor you around how to have that conversation. And just be proud, I think, really, to be that you can ask that conversation, and hopefully you do find yourself in an organization, that is like that. Think about the organization's values. How would you undertaking a coaching qualification align to the organization's values?
Yeah. And, if you're working for an organization that's on a really tight budget and it's really just not an option, often they will still want to support you in some way. And what that might look like is, when you look at the formats of our courses, for example, we have one starting in January, which is a semi-intensive, where it's 3 days in January, 3 days in February, 3 days in March, 3 days in April for the level 7. They may agree you can have the time out from the business to do that program. Unfortunately, we can't support you financially, but we will absolutely support you in the time that it's going to take you to qualify. And that's still a win-win. I think that's something to recognize, because the alternative might be that you do our weekly evening program, which is after work for those of you in the UK, starting at 6 o'clock, going through to 8:30. So if you can relax into it, doing it in the daytime, then that can still feel good. You can still feel valued in that respect. So it may not give you that financial boost that you were hoping for, but if it was going to be a no anyway, then great that you get to walk away, and you can use your evenings then for your reading or your coaching practice or other things that may come up. So go into it with a mindset that you are valued here in this organization, and that you value being there, and you're coming at from a mindset of wanting to give back. And those business cases become much easier to put together and write, I think, if you're in that mindset.
Yeah. And then one of the other things to bear in mind is, with the first assignment on RLM coaching qualifications, you need to write about coaching and mentoring in an organizational context. So if you're writing that about your current organization, that might be something that's submitted at board level, that they use as a way to, grow out a coaching culture. So if that's something that's been on the agenda, but maybe nobody's had the capacity to do it, or the knowledge or the experience to do it, there can be real value there. Or again, maybe if you're not on the board, but you might be that your manager supports you to go and present that to the board, and it increases your visibility in the organization. And maybe it's part of a longer term strategy, or at least it starts the discussions in the organization. But again, you can say, look, I can use our organization as the case study for that, and I can do the research around these things whilst I'm learning about best practice in this area.
And I think it's obvious, but one of the things that just came up as we were talking, which is, of course, you may not be in an organization, you may have your own organization. And it's just worth thinking around, when did you last invest in your CPD and put that through your business as legitimate, continued professional development? Because if you run your own business, you may be in the position where it's tax deductible. You reclaim the VAT if you're VAT registered. So, you may be just not fully looking at all the opportunities that are available for you. And it may be you don't want to be a coach, but actually, if growing your business is actually of interest to you, as we said, by going onto a coaching program and experiencing the program in the way that you do, one, you may add an additional service to your business. But the work that you do on your own mindset might help you to see opportunities for your business that you just don't currently see. So think about, what's the business case for your own business for you investing in your professional development and in a coaching course like ours? So again, probably obvious if you've got your own business, but I think worth just emphasizing that investing in yourself is always a sound investment when you've got your own business.
Oh, totally. From the point of view of, learning new skills, we've had people that have done coaching qualifications in the past, like existing coaches, but have felt that they've got out of practice, or the content hasn't been exactly what they wanted to, and then come and joined us. But also it's about the relationships, the people that you meet. It may be that you meet people that you can collaborate with, and that, that you then go on to do things together. I mean, that's mine and your story, going right back to, our diplomas, the things that we invested in originally. So hopefully we've given you some ideas today that you can use if you are thinking, I'd really love my employer to support me. I think I would. I just don't know how to go about having the conversation, or I've been thinking of investing in myself, but can't decide if it's worth it or not. Hopefully we've given you some things to reflect on. And if you do want to join our courses, you can check out the quiz that we have that will help you to decide on your level, which is at mycoachingcourse.com. And if you want to go straight to booking or find out more about the other things that we do, you can visit igcompany.co.uk.